Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Executive Table Talk. I'm JT O'Donnell, founder and CEO of Work It Daily and the host for today's show. We are going to be talking about how to build a working team. So as you know, Executive Table Talk, we bring in some of the best and brightest executives across all industries, all parts of the globe to talk about these important topics. And building a working team these days, it has its complexities. Are you remote? Are you hybrid? Is it in person? I think there are so many snafus that have come up. So I'm very excited to dive right into it and bring up this incredible group today. Hello, executives. Welcome back.
Hello.
Good to have you here. Michael, I want to start with you. You worked for the NFL, finance operations. You've built and managed many a team in your day. What do you think is important? What are some of the key things when you build a team that actually works?
Thank you, JT. And I love this topic, too. I really love this topic about building a working team. Just like in the sports world, we all want to field a team that's best, build a team with the best players for the team. That's the job. That's my job. We all want to win. In building a team, I must have the same winning mindset. I want the project to succeed, and I want the team to win. Anything less than I'm in the wrong place. So the first part, I broke it down into three different parts. First is the mission. My first step is to build a winning team. I need to know the mission. I need to know what the team needs to accomplish. Once I know this information, I can build a pool of possible team members. My first step in building a winning team is setting a standard for each candidate. I need to develop a tool or some way to vent and raise a standard for each of the people that I want on the team. My next step is the team. Once I have the team properly vetted, I have a pool of people that I have vetted on the team. I will now look for diversity for the pool. I want to bring a different perspective and experience and demographics onto the team. The most important part to consider in terms of the team is not only ethnicity and gender, but also in terms of education, background, and experience and skill set. This can help to ensure that the team has a wide range of perspective. Next is the work. Now that I have the team properly vetted, I will assemble the team and meet with each team member and discuss the role and responsibilities. Then I can meet with the entire group collectively and discuss how the team should work together. Then I can lay out the assignment and give them the mission. And then finally, the expectations and finally feedback.
I love it. I love how you've got that so structured. And it's the kind of structure that you can share with the team so they understand that you as the leader actually have put some thought into making this team function correctly, right? I think that's part of it, going into it with a clear vision and a game plan that they can understand. Great stuff. Carla, I'm jumping over to you. You spent many years in the executive level, now a stylist. You've got a lot of thoughts on building out teams. I'm sure building out your own teams now. What are some tips you can offer up today?
Okay, and JT, I'll try to make it short because yes, I spend a lot of time building teams. So the first thing is you have to hire the right people. That is imperative. You've got to have the right team in place. And as managers, that's our job. So my tip there, when you're interviewing, ask open-ended questions that are built around how that person behaves in a team environment. Ask how they have worked with coworkers. How did they work on a project where other people were involved? You really want to understand how they operate as in a team and as a team member. So first and foremost, I'm going to tell you, you have to hire right. The next thing is now that you spend all that time getting the right people, please take some time to get them acclimated to each other. That's very important. They're going to be working together. And so many people out there know we spend almost more time working than with our families. So it's not so important that people are good friends, but they have to be able to work in a positive professional environment together. Of course, organically, relationships will blossom. You'll find that people get along better with other people. All that is fine. But take some time to do some icebreakers. Do team building exercises, and don't just do it when you've hired the team. That should be ongoing so that they continue to develop their skills and work better together. And then I'll end it, JT. Always make sure that your mission and goal, I'll kind of bounce off what Michael said, missions, goals, and objectives have to be clear to the team. They have to be spelled out. Every team member needs to know what their role is, what's expected of them, and the job placed before them. And I think if you do those three things, JT, you're going to have a really awesome team.
I love it. I'm seeing a theme here in terms of communicating clearly. This is fantastic stuff. Bouncing down to you, Ms. Larissa Perry, global marketing executive, have built many a team in your day. Let's talk strategy, my friend.
Well, I think I have found teamwork is one of the most underestimated tools that when we use it effectively, it has an amazing impact across the organization. Employees who collaborate are more engaged, they're highly successful, and they're less fatigued. So when a good team leverages those unique skill sets and talented, they work together that rather than fighting against each other. And that's what you want. So here's some thoughts as you all start to build highly effective teams out there. For me, I have found you have got to develop a goal for that team and how are you going to measure success at the end of the day. And this is really, I think, one of the most hardest things to do as you're kicking off a team is fine-tuning this. And one of the things that I have found to be very effective is that when you're leveraging everybody's unique skill sets and talents, you want to be flexible on what that goal is and how to measure it. Come to the table with what your vision is and how you're going to measure it, but leverage people's feedback because you've got a highly talented pool of people that you're working with. And you can actually elevate your success based on their feedback on what your vision and measuring on that success for that team project is. The second thing, and Carla said this really well, is you've got to define everybody's roles and responsibilities. Don't have everybody at the table. You want to be very clear on who's there and what their roles and responsibilities are. And this goes into clear expectations. And what I love to do is have a project timeline. Is once you've got everybody's roles and responsibilities, then you're going to lay out what is it that they're going to do? Who is the key person, point of contact? Is that somebody going to support them? What's the timeline? And this leads into communication. Over communicate. I communicate in so many different ways. I've got a timeline. I've got team meetings. I follow up with email. I have one-on-one conversations. And even though I do that so many different ways, I still have people not understanding. And that's okay because it is bound to happen. You just know that you have to over communicate. And as a team leader, you also need to listen to the rhythm and flow of your team. You have to hear that feedback and have to know when to push your team and when to pull back and help support them and give them the resources that they need. And you need to be that cheerleader. You need to be positive. I subscribe to two theories. You get more flies with honey than vinegar, and I serve the needs of others over my self-interest. And that doesn't mean that I don't have an agenda and a goal, but I have found that it is better to be supportive, positive, and inclusive because I will get things twofold back from my team. So that's my focus is I want to be positive and I want to encourage that collaboration and make sure that everybody is working together. And if they're not, I'm going to set up those meetings and get those people collaborating and working together. And Michael said this really well. You want to encourage that feedback, that ongoing loop, so that you can make sure that that team is being elevated to that highly effective status. So hopefully those are some tips and guidelines to help you get a highly effective team going.
I love it. I love that your passion around the over communication. I think that, we think we're communicating enough, but really smart executives know it's generally not enough. People need to hear something 3, 5, 7 times before it actually sinks in, especially with the rate that our brains are going, right? The vision that we have. So great stuff. Anna, I want to flip to you. You have been, Fortune 500, you do a lot of executive coaching. So you see coaches trying to build, high performing working teams. What's your advice here today?
Yes, JT, and I was just reflecting on some of the wonderful, bits and pieces that my colleagues just shared, and I'll try and recap them at the end. But there is one probably trio that I would like to touch upon, in addition to everything, all the good stuff that has already been shared, that I believe, are fundamental in not only building but sustaining an effective working team. And I would start with trust. Any relationship, and we know this, that is not based on trust is most probably not going to be effective, long lasting, successful, impactful, and provide meaning for people. So it is very critical to, from the get-go, to build trust. And one of the big questions that I get asked is, what is one way, or what are some of the ways in which, as a leader, as a manager, I can build trust? And one of them is certainly being vulnerable, being yourself, being vulnerable, acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, being open to really getting to learn from others, being the last to answer, and not always being the first to provide the response or provide a conclusion. So trust is number one. A second big piece that I think is fundamental in having and sustaining working effective teams is conflict. And what I mean by that is really understanding and managing conflict early in the game, rather than allowing for that to evolve and become worse and almost fester with team. So these takes basically skills around certainly coaching, but active listening, really paying attention to what's going on, making sure that people are able to speak to each other and not in their behind themselves, etc. So it's very, very important to make sure that conflict is addressed as early as possible. And then one thing that I believe, the third piece that in some form or fashion has also been addressed or mentioned, is the clarity and the closure on very specific things. So what I mean by this is making sure that people understand what they need to do, and they also understand what the implications are if things are not completed, what is going to happen, and making them and holding them accountable. So I would say it's trust, it's conflict management, and accountability. I would say those are the three things that, in addition to what my friends and colleagues have shared, I would add. I particularly like something that I probably believe the three of you touched upon, which is getting to know your teams. That is going to give you a huge advantage, and it's going to play into all of these three areas that I just mentioned. Thank you.
I love it, Anna. And I love that you highlighted on the whole idea of conflict and working through that. I think it's fantastic. First of all, I want to give a shout out. We have so many amazing people on today. Can't even list them all, but great to see you all here today. And I want to take the first question today from Aman. Aman's saying, how long does it take to build a working team? That is a loaded question, my friends. Does anybody want to give some overarching wisdom? Do you think there's a certain amount of time it at least takes before teams are even humming or rowing in the same direction? Thoughts on that? Any takers? It looks like Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that it depends on the mission. I mean, hopefully you'll get all this information when you get what you're supposed to do and the mission for the team. And so hopefully you'll get like Lisa mentioned, a timeline, which is, I think, is great to have a timeline. That way you'll know how long you need to work on this. But building the team, I guess that also have a timeline for that as well. I think that's a very good question. But I do think that all that should be part of your mission as far as how long it would take to actually you need to build this team.
Yeah, I like your comment, because you want to be realistic, but at the same time, I don't think that's something you should just leave out there and say, we'll get there when we get there. You do want to put some constraint around it. Anybody else want to dive in on that? Anna, go ahead.
What I really appreciate about Aman's question is that it places this as a process or as a formula, meaning there is an A, B, C, D, E that you have to do, and not just wing it, and not just, oh, well, I arrived into this team as their manager or as their leader, and now all of a sudden they're supposed to respect me and accomplish all the goals that need to be accomplished. It really takes a process from really being known as the manager. What is your preferred communication style? What are the things that are fundamental for you? How do you manage deadlines, etc., and everything else that we just talked about as a team. So I really appreciated that, because it really puts it into a framework that you have to apply every time that you start with a new team. Yeah. It's a never ending process to be successful.
Great point. I love it. So I want to add in here, we've got one of our followers today made let's see, Sheila says she thinks it takes about 3 to 6 months. I like that in the sense that she's calling out the fact that you're not going to build a team overnight. It's not going to be a great team overnight. A couple other questions we have here. Question is from Montasar. Do you think current outcomes based on interviews really works when hiring the right people, or should we opt for more of an opportunity approach? So I think what he's saying here is, when you're interviewing, Carla, you specifically kind of talked about hiring the right people, getting it right, doing the interviewing. Are you interviewing for skills, or are you interviewing for the opportunity itself when you think about building the right team? And I'm curious to what you all think about that. And I think what he's saying is, are you hiring for the best experience for the job? Or are you hiring for people based on personality and aptitude? I'd love for all of you to weigh on that. When you're building your teams, how do you approach it? Anyone? Carla, you dive in.
Yes, I think it depends quite a bit on the team you're putting together. So when I was hiring for entry-level jobs, so I would hire a lot of people that were right out of college. This may be their first professional job. Obviously, I couldn't really look at skill set, because a lot of these people had never had a professional job before. So I really had to dive into getting to know them, how their mind works, their work ethic, what do they really like to do for work. So I'd have to say, I think you have to have both. Of course, if you're hiring for a very technical job, then that job experience is very, very important. So you really need to look at what's required. Is this the type of job that people can learn while they go? Is it something where there's a lot of training involved? If that's the case, you may not be as focused on a skill set, more so on personality, disposition, attitude. But I tell you, JT, in my experience, it's got to be a comfortable combination. I just don't think there's success having a lot more of one than the other.
Great points. Anybody else want to add? Lisa, you want to dive in there?
Oh, I was sure. So I was looking at another question.
I just volunteered you
a question. I want to ask you another question. So yes, this one's a really good one too. So I think when you're hiring, you just want to make sure that you're looking at the right questions in terms of asking those, giving them examples of team situations where they can give you specifics on what they've done, how they've led teams, what the success rate is in terms of being a participant. Can they give you examples of where they've contributed, what that's looked like, what they've driven, how they've collaborated, how they've influenced, things like that, in terms of influencing, collaborated, leading. Those are kind of the three things that I look for in terms of looking for the right people, because sometimes they're not the leader, but they're kind of more influencing, collaborating, and I want to get at those skill sets.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Great feedback, team. I want to jump into another question here. We have two kind of similar questions. So Mudo is asking, how do you deal with toxic people who are undermining the team spirit? And Hamidi is also saying, how can we avoid having problems with your team? Which I think probably one of the most common problems that we have is the one that Modu mentioned, which is somebody that's that's being toxic on the team. And I know that word is being overused a lot lately. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's especially on TikTok, I'm just seeing everybody refer to everything as toxic, but I do think we should discuss today when you have that team member that is disrupting or not allowing the team to gel, because that's such an important part, as you all mentioned today, about having a good working team. Any thoughts or tips on that? How to deal with somebody who's disrupting? All right, we'll start with you. I bet you all do. So let's start with Carla and go around the room, because I want to hear from each of you.
I have to tell you, you have to deal with it immediately and directly. The more time that goes on, the more disruptive it is to the team. And then that, of course, affects your overall goal and objective. Some people just aren't cut out for the team environment, and that's okay. Not everybody has to work in a team. Some people are much better working alone, but you cannot let this behavior go on and on. So I'm going to tell you my best advice: deal with it immediately and directly with that individual.
I love it. Other thoughts? Who's raising your hand? Who's up? Michael, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I would say you can't. It's not a wait and see situation. Just like Carla said, you have to deal with it immediately, because it's poison. It can create poison throughout the whole team's mindset. So, and again, you have a mission. You have somewhere you're trying to get to, and just can't have this. Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, I'd add some advice in terms of sitting down with the individual and just asking them some questions about how they think they're adding value to the team in terms of motivating, influencing, collaborating. How do they think that they're contributing when they come in each day? What do they think that they're doing to help the team get to the overall goal, and start to get at that. And typically what I find is that they're angry about something, they're upset about something. And when I start to ask those kinds of questions, we get at the heart of what they're upset about. And I can pull that apart and find out and address the main issue. Sometimes they're just so angry that I then have to elevate it to their boss to say, you know what, I think it's time that we remove them from the team. But typically, if I start to ask questions to say, hey, how can you help? How can you help take us to the next level? We can sometimes get at those issues.
Love it. I love it. And Anna, what about you?
This is such an important moment for managers and leaders in terms of how they handle this particular type of conflict, in this case, toxic people or people that are undermining efforts, outcomes, etc., or the total efforts of the team is so critical. Because if you as a manager or a leader do not operate promptly and quickly, as my colleagues have shared, and effectively, you are going to start to build a brand or a persona of a not very strong manager or leader that then becomes a vicious circle into the team. So this can be a double whammy, I guess is my point. Not only for the outcomes of the team and the overall spirit, but also for the manager and his or her presence within the team and the whole organization. So what has been advised, I think, is the thing to do. And very many times what I have found in my experience, for the most part, people are not even aware that their behaviors are having these type of repercussions. There are some people that absolutely understand that their behaviors are implicating and replicating in everybody else. But for the most part, people don't even know. They're not aware of, if I don't hit a deadline, for example, it becomes a domino effect for everybody else, as basic as that may sound. So I circle back to my comment of managers. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to really demonstrate and role play how managing conflict is done effectively and efficiently for the rest of your team and solve the situation.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Such great feedback from all of my executives. I just want to give a shout out. So many great comments today, everybody. But I really love Brent shared something here. Brent says, absolutely depends on the mission. He's talking about overall building teams. from my own experience, building a team that has a baseline of trust. We heard that today from all of you. Going from there, the mission will gear you and your colleagues to the proper KSAs, which obviously are the measurement tools, and for each member and building upon that. So, executives, a lot of confirmation of what you shared here today. Also want to give Sheila a big shout out. She said, I turned a sales team into analyst. It took patience and being an SME with a built process that works. So great comments. So good to see you here. Another comment from Antonio. The leader needs to give trust, motivation, and influence so that the team members participate actively with ideas of how or do you solve things as well. Wonderful, wonderful feedback. Love that everybody's committed today. I'm going to give each of you one more question because I think this one I want to hear from all of you. We talked about the idea of, building this high-performing team and dealing with conflict. Right now, I think a lot of people are struggling to bring their teams back to a team mentality and less of a family mentality. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I think we all had to care a lot for people during the pandemic. We had to become far more sensitive than we ever did about people's personal lives. So I think during the pandemic, we learned a lot more about our teammates on a personal level than we ever did before. As a result, I've heard from a lot of leaders out there that they're finding it difficult now to bring it back, right? Because they're not building a family. In fact, a study just came out that said that nobody likes to see on a job posting that, you're like family here. That's, too much negativity attached to it. But we need them to be a team. So there has to be a way to set boundaries, I think is the idea here, so that we can bring everyone back to, we are a high performing team. We're not a family. Can each of you maybe share a tip or an idea how you build these boundaries or how you communicate to the team what is team appropriate, right? So that people can start to understand that. Because I think to your point, Anna, a lot of times people don't realize they're doing it. Lisa, you mentioned that too. They're not even self-aware enough to know that they're doing these things. So anybody got any thoughts or tips on how to set those boundaries these days with folks so they realize, hey, we're a team, not a family? Thoughts? Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, nowadays, people are starting to go back to the office. I think the environment, knowing that, hey, I'm in the space now, I'm not sitting in my living room on a Zoom call now. I'm in the office, and I think when you dress for success, you're dressed, you're in your space in the office. I think that also will bring back more of a sense of, okay, I'm not home now, and I'm at work now, and I think that might bring some people back to reality of where am I at, where am I physically located. I think that would definitely change.
I agree with you. I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing a lot of companies push to have people back, because they can't figure out how to do this remotely, right? But they remember being in the office, seeing in the office is going to bring people's awareness to, hey, I've got this work to do. Anyone else on the team here want to comment? Lisa, I'll bounce down to you.
Yeah, I typically have somebody who is kind of my support buddy behind the scenes, where I say, hey, here's my vision, here's my goal, here's my agenda on what I'm doing. And if we get off track and I need to say, hey, we need to get back on track, they will help me behind the scenes. They will chime in and say, hey, we need to get back on track here. So I will either try it myself. They will support me in that and say, hey, we've got an agenda here. We've got to get back on to what the focus of this meeting is. And so I will have that support buddy to do that. That's on the team. So that's one way to do that, so that somebody's not pulling you into 100 different directions.
I like it. Anyone else? Anna, Carla, anybody want to share? Anna, dive in there.
Yes, absolutely. I would also say or add to this that it is very important to start with clear expectations. So it is most probably an opportunity to almost recontracting, if you may, with employees, with your team members, etc., and just talk about what needs to be done, what the expectations are on how things need to be done, and make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions, to clarify. Make sure that you give that at a certain amount of time and dialogue. It is not a negotiation. It is just a change of expectations, but it is important. And I think people in general appreciate we're all adults, and we definitely appreciate when people are being frank with us and are treating us as adults versus just telling us, do this, do that, move there, sit here. And therefore, that helps a ton. Help them get there. Now that they know what their expectations are, help them get there by whether it's new training, whether it's pairing them with a peer buddy, whatever it may be, re-onboarding them, etc., and then hold them accountable. I think, and if you tell them that this is how things are going to happen or take place going forward, then everything should, fall smoothly. I'm here. I'm your leader. I'm your manager. But this is the new way of working. So be clear, setting expectations, helping people, and then holding them accountable with always with the red thread of communication.
Love it. Final thoughts there, Carla? What do you think?
I actually, as a stylist, I had to pop on just from Michael's comment. Managers, remember, you're the leader. People are looking at you. So even if it's something as simple as a Zoom call, you need to look and act the part. So if you want your team to be professional and focused on work, you need to do the same thing from head to toe. And honestly, if you just get back to missions, goals, and objectives, I believe you'll get your team back on track.
I love that you said that. I agree with you. People hear what they see, in the words of Doris Day, right? It's so, so important. Executives, this was an amazing session. Folks, take a moment right now. Do you see these names? Jot them down. Go find them on LinkedIn right this very second and ask them to connect with you. Make sure you customize that connection request and say that you saw them here on Executive Table Talk on ETT by Work It Daily. These are an amazing group of executives. And if you follow them, they're dropping all sorts of insights, wisdom, and information that you can learn from here on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a very powerful learning tool when you follow the right people. And I can tell you right now, these 4 are quite exceptional. So until next time, remember what we tell you. If you want to win, you got to work it daily. Hopefully we'll see you back here tomorrow for another Executive Table Talk. Executives, thank you so much for your time today. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.